How are you holding on? So, second day of great presentations, and it's a real pleasure to see a lot of you. And for any speaker, it's a huge honor to see both people we know and don't. So, without further ado, let's start. I am Lada Antipova. I am leading the incident response and digital forensics in Angara. And my trait is that I like to explain everything with very simple words. I'm not sure whether it's a professional deformation to be, able to explain very simply what has happened. But anyway, I will follow these tactics. Today we will be talking about complex things or simpler things. It's on you to decide. For those who don't know me, I am Lada, and before I went to cyber forensics and criminalistics, this is a nice slide because I took it from the tomorrow's presentation. But let me focus on the important things. I worked as monitoring. So I worked on L1, L2, L3 analyst and SOC, and then I decided to switch to forensics. And sometimes to, fight my imposter syndrome, I'm doing my Telegram channel or speaking at conferences. So, yeah, as everybody. And also, I teach a course on cyber forensics, and I'm preparing another one. Starting with the topic, I did not invent anything new, so instead of going into the future, let's go back to the past and try to remember what was happening before. So when we are talking about security, cybersecurity, when just the first hosts appeared to be published in the network, the main boundary to hold the perpetrators would be passwords. So regardless of whether you published your host or not, you are the one to monitor them. And now we monitor all of them. But before that, even before firewalls, there were some network restrictions. So some perpetrators who were unable to use brute force started inventing some new techniques, rat, malware, more complicated phishing. So all these techniques work brilliantly well right now. And you can also say that this all is in the user environment, and the AV software appeared. And at first, they worked based on signature analysis, meaning that you have hard-coded indicators, some strings, that if the antivirus sees them, it kills the software that contains it. And of course, the malware creators have started implementing the techniques to avoid these, and now AVs would have heuristical analysis, expert analysis, ML, and a lot of other things. So there's a lot of verdicts with different types. And then the malware creators said, okay, Defender is working fine. Even the red teamers would say that the Defender is quite hard to avoid. And additionally, some blockers from the operating system sides were created, some requirements to the binaries you can launch, and other stuff. And then the actors decided they would use the utilities that already exist in the system, either as is, or things that the admin would introduce, RDP, PSExec with SNB. And we have all this, so why don't we use it? And what makes them popular is no secret. Is first of all, we have it on the host. Second, each and every tool can be used in each and every stage of the attack. We're not talking about PowerShell that has huge capabilities, but also about running and persistence and escalation. So, and of course, we would like to avoid detection, to minimize detects. That's a very important feature of these types of tools. If you introduce something, it's not easy. The AV or security tool would detect it. But with the tools that are already on the host, it's the same. It's there. Same with like any desk that we will talk about uses those utilities. So the person from the outside would just see the ordinary admin routine. And I see this mistake done multiple times. I'm doing forensics, but we also have our monitoring centers sitting nearby. So there's a lot of requests from our clients go through me, like when we need some exceptions in the rules. And I often see the mistake of, Vasily is the master of PowerShell, so we will just put his account into exceptions. He does a lot of crazy stuff. At this stage, we usually tell them, whoa, no, don't do this. Let's have a look at how we can interpret it differently and try to learn from Vasily on how this can be done without just ignoring what he's doing. And to stay on the same topic, let's have a look at how it works real life. So this is a live example, random examples of our research and reports. This slide has the dumbest and the least interesting examples that we can provide when people use those utilities on the research phase, intelligence phase, Deskware, PowerShell, CMD, very simple, basic primitives. The way the intelligence is done, usually those commands would be run in numbers. Important thing to point out here is that it's something that creates an alarm with me is DS query. It's an important topic. Like one of the incidents we had, we came to react to an attack of the encryptor and the ngrok simple tools. But at the intelligence stage, the actor, maybe you heard this story from me, at the intelligence stage, the actor used DS query to get all the entities that are available in the Active Directory. So he did not use AD recon, UMAP, or something like this. He just started connecting RDP with RDP to all the entities. And if it didn't work, it didn't work. But in the beginning, I thought it's like, there was a scene on my side. Like, I thought, yeah, the guy lacks the skills. It's too much resources wasted. But I think it was, now I think it was a very wise move, because like with DS query, if you remove the beginning and trailing part, there's not many symbols, so it's an interesting tactic. Another example is the manipulation with the guest account. So, UMI and admin work is monitored, but when the guest account is used, that can be an indicator to hunt those like let me step aside. Not all the utilities pay attention to the guest account. It's local. It's on your PC. And at some point, it's been addressed. Some parameters being changed. So then we understand that some actions happen before that. You need to research this deeper, despite this thing looking like just admin work. So, okay, we dealt with the discovery. Let's talk about some more interesting things. Have you seen this utility in production? Me? Not much. Even when I worked as an ordinary engineer, finger utility was not used by me. So it's used to request the user information on the remote host. But here it was used to exfilter the data. So based on this utility, basically you can create some detects, and of course the parameters are also interesting. Some more examples. MSHTA, one of the very popular ones, not just because it has something to do with my channel. And it's not only used to just see the records by the actors that are using this utility, but also to put the payload on the host. So MSHTA plus HTTP plus HTTPS is a red flag that we need to react to definitely. PCA, LUA, without even coordinating, together with Oleg Skolkin, we are showing this example. And this utility is like, you should be on the defender's side. Why are you doing this? So if you look deeper, this utility gives us, starting with Windows 11, is used for defense. But here it's used to upload the payload. So it's a proxy execution of this unpleasant thing. And I have a lot of questions on, okay, yeah, it's used quite specifically with some very telling flag, but this random stuff makes me think deeper. Also, yes, exec is not to surprise us, but of course, I added it to show you that any action done by your utility will have consequences. And you can also create hunts based on it. PowerShell is very deeply researched, and I will just give you all the links. Another important topic. First of all, this slide was called Popular Myths. And I was looking at it for quite a while, and then I couldn't name it like this because this is just words. We can discuss it for quite a while. But as part of my presentation, first, Mimikatz utilities are not living on the land. Because Mimikatz, when you detect it on your host, it will give you, million AV activations. Even the customized versions would be detected with high probability. Also, forensic utilities, even forensic utilities, most of them, if you put them on the host, they will be detected, and they will be recognized as hack tools, because if you, take hash history from the browser and stuff like that, that's not good behavior for the software. So if, as part of this presentation, we touch on this, we will stay here for a year. There was a lot said about it. And second thing is that living on the LAN is not fileless malware. It's important because as a responsible presenter, I read a lot, and a lot of discussions were like, yeah, fileless attacks are something very niche and specific, and people don't know about it. So, no, it's not true. It will be just harder to detect the consequences. So, because fileless malware are kind of obscure branch of knowledge, I could not avoid commenting on it. So, I am often asked things like, can you detect fileless attacks? Will you see those things? So let me spend some of your time here. First of all, the most important thing is an example that you can see on the left. It's alternative data flows. For some reason, alternative data flows are somehow classified as fileless malware. Ask anyone, an analyst, monitoring analyst. Alternative data flows is not malware. It's important to have telemetry. You will fully understand how they are used and if they are used. So why is it done like this? Why is it labeled like this? No, it's not noiseless. And hello from Cloud Atlas. It's their script is in the cram key. So those fileless attacks, they often are based on the registry. So to load those stages, you need to put some information here, then as in the example on the right, it takes part from one key, then uses another key, and thus the script is uploaded from the control server. So there's no work with the file system, but is it not detectable? Is it noiseless? No, definitely. Of course, you can track the registry. And especially when it's binaries and B64 put in the registry. Yeah, it's not one string, right? It's a lot of data that is easy to detect. And another thing is in-memory execution, because recently I was reading a kill chain about fileless attack, and it was using PowerShell, but it was phishing to LNK, then LNK, then MSHTA, then to PowerShell, and then something is loaded in the memory. As my colleagues have already said, well, you have a lot of stages to detect this story, to just focus on this and to name it fileless. I would not say so. So some hints on what we do with those attacks is, first of all, we gather evidence of execution, classical tactic. Is it presence or is it execution? We do the prefetch, the cache, the sysmonitor, and there are some nuances that made me put it aside. Of course, security journal, telemetry, expand audit, and tasks. I highly recommend you, if you haven't watched the presentation by 4Ace about all the tasks and how they should be done, and also provided a great module to use for one of the forensic utilities. I am using it myself. Highly recommend it. And my deep respect and gratitude to the colleagues. And then we monitor the registry keys with some specifics, like data size. PowerShell should be logged, of course. We will be able to find everything. And AMI implants. Some details here. How can we find a lot of the big chunks of data? I had a look at the Registry Explorer for forensic experts, and it has specific functionality to search by the data size, and timelines also are important. To also hunt via WMI, it's not complex. It's easier. There will be, of course, false positives, but it will be easy to filter them out. We just need to monitor, and yeah, it's easy to hunt using WMI. If you look at our customers, usually it's a very simple scenario. And based on PowerShell, a lot of very good things were said of Zone and Uni42, Timo at OffZone and Uni42. If you need to understand what to do with PowerShell, those two presentations are must go to, and there will be enough knowledge from there, just included in the manuals, and you'll understand fully how it works. So, okay, living on the land utilities, PowerShell, WMI. You can use RegSRV and some other elements to be less noisy. What do we do here? Here, the project is a big one. It's like a meta project. Everybody knew about his bus, GTO beans, and there was now at least it's 15 starting from any desk, supported by the community. Really recommend you to follow this project. And the most important things here are, first of all, all buses. We have a set of criteria to find them. First, our binary should be signed. It should have some strange or unintended functionality. We know if like web users would use it for work and account management, like LOTL and others. They are not used for certificates, for example, are of interest. SHTA also. So we use them mainly to upload, download some information or to run some proxy execution. And my recommendation here is, for example, when you come to the host to react to the incidents, you see privilege escalation, you see UAC breach, and yeah, just use those tools. For example, if people have bypassed UAC, just search for them. There will be like 2 or 3 candidates, and then based on timeline, check that was this thing run in the suspicious period of time. And of course, I'd like to say that there's a lot of utilities on the site for LOLBAS, and it's not an exhaustive list. It's not hard to find them. Even in the presentation that started the LOLBAS project, the recommendation was to go to sys32 and just list all the files that are signed. And, just look at them one by one. Unfortunately, their manual, their help file, would not 100% tell you that it's all the capabilities. Even without reverse engineering, just enumeration will help. But yeah, keep in mind that there can be some hidden issues and some more nuanced features. Here's an example from the book, like 30TIL, through URL cache. And I was just looking at it recently. It looks like an APT. And yeah, 30TIL and URL cache, just like this. And it's strange, but let's have a look. Is it hard to detect this thing? 30TIL, okay, but URL cache, it's maybe not used once or twice. But if you compare it to the publication of certificates, it differs quite a lot. So this param should be put a lot of attention to. And there is also writing on the disk in terms of threat hunting or compromise assessment. Just look at the prefetch and reference files. If you don't know or if you forgot, prefetch puts all the files within 10 seconds that it works with into a specific list. So you can use it to look for app data, TMP folders. So yeah, you can use it. And also writing on the disk. Can be noisy, but we are threat hunters. Non-standard port, doesn't need to be commented on, but with certitl, it has a very specific user agent. If you hunt on the traffic, so any LOL bus utility will have a specific user agent. This also creates another important point of information for us. Also, it will shorten our download, and when we split something, there will be at least 2 connections to the target server, as we can only download the information from both internal and external resources. Not only CNC server can be used, but also host to host. That part is important. And also, threat hunting capabilities are endless, like Cypher. It's being used to actually deter forensics. Do you see such things in prefetch? That's definitely a red flag. If we go to Nix, CURL is hard to base your hunt on. Programmers, everybody would use it. But the params here are very specific. And threat hunting and threat intelligence, with these params, you can, if you have telemetry, if you have command lines, you can just hunt using these hard-coded strings. And of course, specific folders used by the perpetrators. And as I already said, LUA, and it's super important to monitor it and to know how it looks. The more you read, the more used to detecting those things you become. There's not many TI reports. You can actually digest them all and understand what's going on. Maybe to create all the tools for that will be more complicated, but actually, at least, to train yourself on that, it's super important. When I was in the SOC, everybody told me, like, I need to read this all, and I was like, where do I go? CVs every day, those things. But if you prioritize that data flow, it's very, very possible to keep in touch with all the news. So let's summarize it. What do we need for the LOLBAS? I can summarize by saying that you need high-quality telemetry. In the LOLBAS detection, there's no super complicated rocket science, but you need to understand the context. EDR, UTD, basic things on the end host. Then prefetch, memory, more advanced things, more threat hunting oriented things. And of course, super important to monitor process creation via CLI. And when we run extended audit, we are doing this because we think something will change, like firewall, ADD, and some specific calls will happen, like registry calls. We need to log this all, because without that, we will not be able to do the hunting. And user agents, if that's something you can focus on, also useful. And just some reference to all my Linux presentation. Please, I was saying, please, if you are not a Nix file admin, to read and understand what's happening on your server is very important. Because, look, there's there's a Nix utility that is similar to any LOL bus file. So you can deeply understand how to monitor and manage rights here. Further on, what I would like to highlight here of those projects, probably the most painful thing for me is I don't understand why we keep creating all those complicated defense lines, buying those expensive tools, but still we can have ISOs sent through email. How you get it? How do you do it? This is big surprise for me. So this project, quite comprehensive one, gives you an overview. You can even create a list of things you need to be blocking a priori. If your admin would like to send images through mail, like I won't be able to send an image from my home PC. Yeah, it's funny for me. I can definitely help solving this without those things. So I am very human-based security-centric, but this story definitely is not worth it because your security people will be in pain. Trusted sites. As I know, there will be a presentation by Kaspersky on how legitimate sites like YouTube and cloud services are used to communicate with our infected computer. And please don't forget that this Yandex or anything similar can have very different things. And if you don't use it for work, looks like you don't need it. Like block it to avoid working with it. Drivers, a very important and interesting project that I recommend to have a look at, to know how it works. Remote tools, AnyDesk, AnyAdmin, super important. I very often see the actor coming to the host and he wants to install AnyDesk, but sees it. It's there like, wow, I have it here. Because he brought the installer with him and just uses the connections through AnyDesk that is already there. They are not stupid. And if you give them the tools, if they are on the host, to create extra noise is not needed for them. So that's why it's not limited to AnyDesk. And there's a lot of those tools. And you have them on this side. And in terms of detection, I won't be repeating the other wonderful reports, but just Sans has great cheat sheet of which logs to get and where to look and how it's being used by the actors. Just pay your attention to this and keep in mind that, you know, when I come to the customer and see those things, I am usually very negative. It's like not the good way to work and is great.
And one last point, one of my most favorite points. I think here we should have, well, from the start, I wanted to give a lot of links to many websites because these informations have been mentioned many times today and tomorrow. These are my favorite tools for accumulation. I wanted them to be everywhere so that you understand how many of them there are. GSOC and Croc, I guess they are abused already, but actually all the examples that you will see, in case if you see them, it was thought as cheat sheet because then I will put them on my channels and colleagues will share the presentation. Networky, Cheesy, Coast, Cloudflare, all of this is used. It's used very actively these days. But in case if you draw your attention to each of the lines, then these are examples from the wild nature, as we say, from real life cases. If we look at them, then it seems that command rows are not difficult to detect. So these are very specific parameters that are used. By the way, let me refer to the previous presentation. There was a question like you find parameters and it gets launched with them, but there are not many options. Okay, these parameters may be detected. It's okay. It's all right because it's a learning process for us. It's a learning process for attackers. Also, configuration files and calls to some domains. We will not dive deep into this, but let me say the following. It's easy to detect. Most importantly, you should know where to detect, where it may be planted, and then it's not that easy. As I've said, this slide, and we will just commit it to original project. I think that this is why the things that get published and the things that I get spoken about in my colleagues' the sessions today and yesterday, believe me, they all are talking about their pain points. They see it on a daily basis, and this is what we should pay our attention to first of all. And now, what are we to do with this now? In the end of every presentation, there should be some conclusions and their actions to the questions. So what? What do we do now? So some conclusions first. As I said, preparation is very important. Even if we look at response stage and the boring theory and similarly, why do we need it? But if you look at response stage, then the first one is preparation because you need to know what are you faced with and what, based on what are you going to respond and how are you going to investigate incident. I got reprimanded for this, but sooner or later you will get hacked. The question is at which stage you will catch this hack and detect it. When we talk about threat hunting, anyway, there will be a lot of false alarms here, and you will need to eliminate a lot of things. But there's no getting away from this, and we should always look at the context. Next, we primarily focus not on core kernel indicators and IOCs. We know about the lifetime, etc. Where we should focus on indicators of attack, the command rows, and the techniques and procedures, how and what was in the context, how was the command executed, what was the rep, and what preceded it. The PowerShell itself is not that scary, but the context, what's the parent and what's the user that runs it. When PowerShell is run at 3 a.m. by a person from reception, it's not a trusted story. Any response team, when they reach out to you, they will be asking about every point. What is the significance of this server or this working station? And the context is very important here. You need to know what's good for the network. And most importantly, you should understand, in case if you have Lenovo update and it's in program data and suddenly it goes to Kaspersky server or Microsoft server, then, criminals are great at disguising. They're good at disguise. So when you see this picture and people say, "Oh, it's Lenovo laptop. We sent it for an update. It's legitimate. Let's not pay attention to this. Let's ignore." Well, then I have questions. We should know what's normal and what is abnormal. What are the abnormalities? For SOC and for analytics monitoring, threat hunting, you should know the key system processes, including what's the normality for the system. And you should disable what's not needed. In case that we know that we do not use it, just disable it. Just if you don't use it, then somebody else will make use of it. And this is the thing. This is something that will help us and will help us avoid more work. That's all that I have. Now I'm happy to take your questions. Please remember, there is a hoodie that I brought here. It will be a gift for the best question. It seems that it's easy and it should remain easy.
Ada, спасибо. Очень интересные ссылки на...
Thank you, Lade. Very interesting links to resources about utilities. My question is the following. Windows creates a lot of noise in the logs. As an example, beginning from Windows 8, disk activity in Health Dispatcher shows non-trustworthy data. Sometimes it's beyond 100%, but it doesn't mean anything bad. Also, in system logs, there's a lot of noise, and it's difficult to differentiate it from necessary information. Are there any projects that help to eliminate this noise? By the way, it's a great question. When we look at this information on our end, I agree that Windows, on the one hand, it's a great. I want to express great gratitude to Windows that it logs everything, but it scams, it creates a lot of spam. Really, you need to know where is legitimate activity, where is illegitimate activity, because I showed you random, and Windows can always show random things. They will be legitimate process Defender, for instance, with SIS files. There will be a lot of them. And after Java, I didn't include the link, but there is one project. I have a link to it in my channel. I told about it in the channel. It works well, but it's not executed as often, but it will work for the basic cases. You may type in the binary there, and it says that by default, it's supposed to be here and here. It may be connected there and there. And for the start, it's a good thing. It helps. So I think that just on the sidelines, I could give you a link to the project. But once again, it's limited. Just like any open source project, it's updated by people. So it should look into details, of course. And in some time, as you gain literacy in this, you will know about it. Okay, so we need experience, I see. Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. First, based on your experience, how often do you see launch of SSH-exe from a reverse tunnel with Windows Touch? And the second question built on that, from subsystem WSL, if this file is missing, then how often did you detect any attachments to this system? Thank you for the question. It's a great question. About SSH, I guess it can be merged with WSL when it uses what is not there initially in the system. But if you look into incident practice, then clearly on all the flow, it's not that frequent story. So it's an exception, not the rule. But I think that this is our bad. We're underestimating WSL in terms of incident investigation, etc. So at one of my presentations, I explained how to analyze this system, etc. So answering your question, not often, but well, in my memory, I've had one or two examples, one or two cases, and it was not my personal practice. It's including what my colleagues have seen in the Russian landscape. But these cases are present, so definitely it makes sense to keep this in mind. About SSH-exe, if it's not available, somebody brings it, for instance, it's going to be legitimate, right? It's signed with microfault certificate, but it organizes reverse channel. Did you monitor this case? somehow. But I mean, have you seen any incidents because of that? What do you mean? Is it going to be suspicious or not? Chisel or Ghost, it's not that, but just SSH Windows. Yeah, I see. But this is the case where it is brought by someone, but it's like bringing any other instrument with you, whether it's cheater or which can be detected, but overall it's not. Whether it's SSH, it's very similar to a story when even system binaries from the same file system 32, they're just copied to other directories, however they're present in their directories, and they could be exploited, siloed, and can do this, and they download their malicious DLL. They just copy it and they utilize it. The same thing when SSH is brought from the side to use it. One more question. How often do you see in your clients, or how often do you recommend to introduce restricted policy for apps, WS scripts, WBS, GS, and other illegitimate, legitimate, but the ones that are not necessary for an accountant, for instance? And about printers, audit of printer policies, I mean, particularly those that have the open 445 port. About policies, it's a nuance. If we talk about PowerShell, then it seems that it's not that complicated, no matter how much you handle it, but we discuss it, we give recommendations, of course, but it can be bypassed very fast. Even Microsoft says that these policies were developed in order to, for foolproofing only, for idiot-proofing, so that admins do not launch it, and there's yet another step to be overcome. So we give these recommendations, but we give disclaimers right away that it can be used anyway, and it's not difficult to bypass it. It's more difficult with other utilities. For instance, you made an example of system utilities, but if you introduce a limitation for Python, and what about Visual Basic application? It's quite outdated. Yeah, I get it. We're using limitations on what we have already, but in case here we can limit something. But in case if we bring Python, then how can you limit Python? It's very difficult. So I guess you can talk about it for a long time. And it's like, we recommend to use AppLocker. But in case if you ever introduce AppLocker in production, then you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I see this response. It's very painful. It's not about one day, and there's the same story with policies. But you've heard of this practice, right? If it's painful, then it's all right. If it's not painful, if it's easy, then something is wrong. Yeah, I heard about it, but back in the day, I was taught that the more limitations you introduced in the network or in the infrastructure, let's step away from information security. The more limitations you introduce, the more users feel awkward, and they're trying to find more tricky ways to bypass it. As for information security, it works very well, and you should maintain balance here. That you limit it, it's great. Well, let alone the user. The user will be swearing, using bad words, but information security are resilient to that, I guess. But when a criminal or a hacker starts looking for this, then it's going to be more difficult. Well, there are nuances. And one more matter about printer run, or about, well, for instance, maybe many people create shared documents, etc., in order to make sure that there are no easy access ways, system accounts, etc. So do you mean, do we recommend, well, and how often have you seen this, or you have never seen this? With printers, this story is, these cases are available out there, but they're not that important in the overall situation. But if we talk about the shared documents, shared files, then it's really painful. When we talk about administrative resources, it all has secondary reasons. If we talk about administrative shares, it's not just convenient for our users, it's not just convenient to administrators. Administrative shares is what exact works through administrative share. But then when you come to infra and when you see that these tools, I hope they're not used because they are really spam intensive and this will be difficult to clarify. Just switch them off. In our recommendations, after response, we give a long list of recommendations. I'm always recommending that make this and this secure, disable this and this and this. Well, the most secure thing is just to switch off internet, of course, and we will be very safe. But we're giving in a fragmented manner, like this point, and this point. In case if we see a problem in printers, or in case if we see problems with files, not to go to custom stories, just mitigate it. Just close the loopholes so that it cannot be penetrated. Just be more democratic in this sense. And indeed, it's important to explain why, what, and why, and how. In case if there are more questions, let's not take more time. In case you have more questions, you're welcome to approach me on the sidelines. I'll be happy to answer. I like the question about Windows because I know a lot of people come to me and they keep on saying, how can you tell in Windows where is legitimate and where is illegitimate? You can detect it. So this is for you.